Good morning, everyone. Hello, and welcome to our 13th Learning and Professional Development Week. My name is Jamie Lee, and I am so glad to have you join us for this time of learning. This year's LPDW, The Power of One City of Hope, Achieving Excellence Through Compassion and Collaboration, features an exciting week of engaging with internal and industry experts about enhancing a compassionate and collaborative workforce. We invite you to use the chat to connect with the virtual producer or to ask questions of our speaker. Today's sessions are focusing on the power of a growth mindset. Be sure to participate in the engaging features in the LPDW attendee hub, including our attendee gaming feature that distributes points for participating. And the players on the top of the leaderboard at the end of the week will receive a little treat. I am pleased today to announce our speaker for this session, John Longhill. John is an executive advisor, corporate trainer, life consultant, workshop leader, and youth mentor for over 35 years. As CEO of Right Brain Success, John has provided educational opportunities for expanded awareness and growth for thousands of individuals and dozens of companies. John Longhill is a neural change solutions consultant and part of Dr. Joe Dispenza's global NCS team. He is HeartMath certified, and he helps individuals innovate the latest scientific understanding about the brain as in neuroscience to change how business is done. Through these trainings, NCS is radically upgrading the way we do business. John will spend 45 minutes giving you a preview of the Change Your Mind, Create New Results training, and allow for 15 minutes at the end for any questions you may have. John will begin his presentation by answering 3 questions that will help you to verify the validity of this information for you personally. What should you listen to? Why should you listen to this information? What is the value to you personally? And how can you apply this information immediately in your day-to-day life? Without further ado, please welcome John.
Thank you, Jamie. How's the sound?
Oh, it's perfect. We can hear you. Wonderful.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this preview of Change Your Mind, Create New Results. And before I begin, I want you to think about a question you'd like the answer to about yourself, your job, your work, your business, or anything that you'd like the answer to. What would that question be? Now think about this question and hold that question in your thoughts. Now take your fingers and hold them up like this, about this far apart, about 8 inches. And the answer to your question is no further away from you than this distance right here. Do you believe me? Now take your fingers and hold them up to your temple like this. Between your 2 fingers is where the answer to your question lies. And I'll be sharing with you in the next hour how this is not only possible, but how it's easily within your reach. So let's start by answering those questions that you may have either consciously or subconsciously about what I have to offer you today. Like, why should I listen to this information? What's the value of this to me personally? And how can I apply this? Well, let's start with question 1. Why you should listen to this information? Well, information is the precursor to experience. And the greater our information, the better our experiences will be with any given situation. Does that make sense? So in this regard, the more information you have about how your life works, then the better your life experience is going to be. And your life experience begins and ends with what's happening in your brain, in your mind. So the more knowledge you have about its workings, the better your life experience can be. And when it comes to the capabilities of our mind, our brain, the potential is truly unlimited, especially within the context of our newest understandings in neuroscience. The natural neuroplasticity of the brain allows us an ability to adapt to virtually any situation when we understand how it works and take the time to consciously engage our thinking processes in correct and productive ways. Knowledge is power, and self-knowledge is self-empowerment. So what's the value of this to you personally? Well, life is about change. And we don't want to just survive life, right? We want to thrive, not only in our professional lives, but also in our personal lives. And to do that, we must continue to learn, to change and grow. And we must adapt to this ever-changing circumstances that surround us. So the value of this information is in the application of dealing with change in practical and productive ways. By applying it with stress management, relationships, creative decision-making, leadership, or just the ability to deal proactively when unexpected changes in your life occur. We're always encouraged to think outside of the box, when dealing with problems that need to be addressed in creatively different ways. And this is only possible when we have an understanding of how the brain and the mind works most effectively to accomplish whatever it is that we're trying to be successful in. So how can you apply this? Well, knowledge is only philosophy until the information is actively applied and doing something differently. Until then, it has no practical use. A famous quote from Dr. Einstein is, he said, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created that problem." So in other words, we need to think differently if we're going to evolve and grow. And the value in our training program entitled Change Your Mind, Create New Results is in the offering of 2 models and 4 practical tools that bring new thoughts to the forefront of your life, leading to new actions and behaviors which will ultimately create new experiences based on consciously directed intentions. There's a science to creativity, and new thought is the basis of our evolution as individuals. I want to share with you some feedback we received from 3 people who took this training, and 2 of them were nurses. One's name was Barbara W., and Barbara's an RN providing patient care for a large hospital in Chicago. And she was struggling with the extra load of the pandemic and was actually looking for another position because her stress levels were so high, at the hospital she was at, even though she had worked there for a long time. But after the training, she said, "Hey, sorry for the late response. I've been working double shifts the last few days. As a nurse, this training definitely helped me show up as the highest version of myself, despite the obvious obstacles, particularly with such short staffing that's happening now everywhere. But this training has given me the tools to be the best nurse I can be for my patients, while allowing me to maintain control of my stress and my emotions. And since I completed the NCS training, I've actually gotten another raise. I was elected Employee of the Month, and I turned down that offer at the other hospital. I've definitely fallen in love with the profession all over again." And from Abigail, who's an RN providing inpatient care for a large hospital in Buffalo, New York. She said, "I feel like I could go on and on about this training and how it's changed my life. The workshop has helped me realize that I don't have to worry about things before arriving at work. I used to create these negative work scenarios in my head, worrying that they'd occur, again, causing a lot of unwanted stress. And I used to waste so much time worrying, overthinking things when I wasn't even at work yet. Then I'd walk into work grumpy and thinking negatively before my day even started. But this workshop helped me to understand that I'm in control of what I experience. There's those individuals who crave drama and negativity in the work setting and see, you see this so much in healthcare. But that used to make my job even more difficult. But I've come to realize as I've become more aware of this, that those people and circumstances are not the directors of my life. I'm the director of my life. I feel like I'm the one in charge, and I'm really able to focus on work and myself. I feel fresh going to work now. It's helped me to see and work more clearly with much less stress, which helps me to give greater care to my patients, which is what makes me happy and feel good. I think the workshop is so great for anyone, but especially nurses and healthcare workers, because it's changed so much for me. So NeuroChange Solutions is a global company with over 130 consultants doing training worldwide. The training we do is at the cutting edge of scientific knowledge based on the latest research in neuroscience. Our understanding of the brain has expanded exponentially in the last 20 years because of breakthroughs in measurement techniques and new technology. We all grew up with the belief that once you got to a certain age, your brain couldn't grow and learn that much anymore. But the latest research in neuroscience shows us that our brains have unlimited capacity at any age as long as we're healthy. And we have functioning neural networks. And this is what's known as neuroplasticity. So NCS is changing the nature of business worldwide. And here are some of our clients that are benefiting from this information. They're realizing the importance of the neuroscience of change, like Microsoft, Google, Cisco Systems, Sony, Pfizer, Coca-Cola, IBM, Johnson & Johnson, Amway, Heineken, Target, Nucleo, Vela's Resorts, even the US Navy. We've had Navy SEALs taking this training. And talk about stress, right? The National Park Service, Ethicon, Quesomex, DHL, and even the United Nations. So these are some of the benefits experienced by previous participants, in this training in their own words. And what they've said is it's helped them become conscious of and more able to stop negative thoughts. Help them to generate new ideas that help them personally and in their business and their job. And it helped them have more tools for conflict resolution because they're operating at a different level of awareness now. And it empowered them with knowledge, which enabled them to have more control over the experiences that they were having than they ever thought possible. And as a result, it helped them experience less stress because they now understand, why stress occurs, what it's for, what it's not for, and how to use stress as a positive force in their life. And it helped them understand how to stop old behaviors that didn't support their happiness and fulfillment. And it helped them plan and execute things that they wanted more successfly because it helped them become better problem solvers, helped them be better at conflict resolution. You'll be better able to handle difficult, unexpected situations, because you'll be looking at change not as a problem, but as an opportunity, for creative inspiration and expression. And they said it helped them be more productive, more focused, and more importantly, more aware. So what does all this mean, for you or the people that you work with or for? Well, as a company, you're going to be able to make faster decisions. You're going to ignite passion in yourself and your clients. There'll be more collaborative thinking, more productive meetings, better work cohesion, more support, clearer, stronger communications, a higher level of engagement. You're going to become change management experts, providing a better client experience. So again, knowledge is the precursor to experience. The more knowledge we have, the better our experiences. So I'm going to share some knowledge with you to help you have better experiences in your life and your job. And this information is based on the latest research in neuroscience. So the brain is electrochemical in nature. When nerve cells fire, they exchange these charged elements that produce these electromagnetic fields of varying electrical activity. And these variances can be measured, as brainwave frequencies, and that can tell us important information about what we're thinking, feeling, learning, dreaming, creating, and that information that we're processing up there. Thoughts are nerve cells that are firing, and feelings are those chemicals that are transmitted from the brain to the body. And we can measure the firing of these charged elements as brainwave frequencies using an EEG, an electroencephalograph. And again, when our brain's doing different things, we can correlate it to different brainwave frequencies. So would you agree that when we're daydreaming, it would make sense that our nerve cells are probably firing differently than when we're taking care of a work-related crisis? So I want to share a story about you as a newborn and how you began experiencing this 3D reality we call life. When you were born, your brain was fully developed as far as having the capacity to learn, which means physically forming the neural networks that eventually became, who and what you are today. But it was like an unprogrammed computer without an operating system. You had the ability to learn because it had some firmware installed, right? Like a computer, but no operating system yet. And from the moment you were born until about 6 months, your brain was primarily in delta brainwave frequencies, which normally occurs as adults when we're in deep sleep. And that's why babies, sleep so much in those first few months of life, and then from 6 months until 5 or 6, when you're awake, your brainwave was in theta brainwave. Now, theta is like a hypnotic state. It's when we're open to anything that's presented to us. And this is when the brain absorbs information continuously, during those waking hours through the 5 senses, without any resistance or filters to what you're absorbing. This is why this stage of life, our environment is so important, right? Because we absorb everything. We take in the good and the bad, and that becomes part of our unconscious programming. You're like an open book of blank pages, filling those pages like a mental sponge, absorbing information into it and squeezing all that information into those neural structures and connections in your brain. And this is all possible because of the frequency waves that were present in your brain. In those first few months of life, your brain's emitting electrical impulses throughout your body in the form of delta frequency waves. As you get a little more years on you, theta frequency waves are added, then alpha. And those frequencies are the same frequencies that promote, healing, health, and vitality. And by the time you were 6, you started to add low beta waves frequencies. And by the time you were 8, these lower frequencies found in delta and theta were only occurring during the sleep cycle, and in your waking state, you're primarily in low, mid, and high beta frequencies, and some alpha. So you're now in this moment probably operating in low beta, hopefully, right? If I were to say, okay, I'm going to test you, and when I'm, teaching you right now, you might go into mid-range beta, like the light bulb gets a little brighter. If all of a sudden you're faced with a potentially life-threatening situation, your brain's going to move into high beta. And the reason this is important is because when you understand how to use these brain states to your advantage, it's not only empowering, it's transformative, because you can use this information to actually experience tangible results in your life and your life's purpose. So here's a quick review. This is the slide. Beta is when more of your attention is on your outer world than your inner world. It's when you're using your analytical mind. It's when the brain is aware and conscious. And it's when we're processing all the sensory information, and data that's picked up by our senses. Alpha is when more of our attention is on the inner world than our outer world. We're in a state of imagination, imagining. It's when our thinking and analyzing mind slows down. It's when that light meditative state. And theta is when the body's asleep and the conscious mind is awake. When we're half awake, half asleep, that twilight or lucid state. And in theta, we're more programmable because there's no veil between our conscious and subconscious mind. Advertisers are well aware of this information and use it to your advantage. When you're tired, sleep, watch, half asleep watching TV, half awake, and you're receptive, in this theta state as you watch those TV shows in the evening, and all those advertisements. And delta is when we're in deep sleep. It's when we're not consciously aware. And this is an important time because this is when the body restores and heals itself. So there's 2 aspects of our life experience. One is about survival or stress, and the other is about creation or happiness, survival versus creation. The 2 hemispheres of our brain reflect this distinction. The left brain processes cognitive routine, it's habituated, it houses all the information that's been stored since birth that has taught us how to survive and be safe. And it's where our critical and analytical thinking occurs. And the left brain is linear, mathematical. It controls our language. When we learn a language, it's a right brain experience. But once we learn it, it gets lateralized to the left brain because we use language to survive. And because of this experiential program and its focus on the survival, the left brain lives in limitation because it can only operate from what it's already experienced and learn the known. It's like your autobiographical self. So the right side operates very differently. It's spatial, adventuresome, creative. It's a nonlinear processor because it processes cognitive novelty. It's the romantic side. It's intuitive. It operates from the unknown, and it welcomes new experiences and adventure. And it's unlimited in its thinking. And we move from one to the other based on how we set up our thoughts and experience, which is based on our circumstances, right? If we need to run away from something or we need to be creative, we're going to be drawing on different parts of the brain. But our creative brain is often in conflict with that survival brain because they have very different priorities. One's focused on survival, one's focused on happiness and fulfillment, right? We need both. But life is a lot more fun when we direct our lives creatively rather than just surviving. And science has shown us a way to balance these hemispheres into a whole brain state. And when we do this, there's this profound change in how the person begins to think, act, and feel. When balancing the two hemispheres, we feel whole and orderly. There's less stress because we're actually thinking differently. Remember, it's not the circumstances that dictate our life experience. It's our thoughts and our emotions, that dictate our life experiences about those circumstances. That big frontal cortex of our brain is what separates us from all other animals on the planet because it makes up 40% of the volume of our brain. But it can be a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that we can create things by thought alone. The curse is we can create things by thought alone. On one hand, our ideas can create amazing things like radio, television, iPads, automobiles, the internet, et cetera, et cetera. But it can also create stress, by putting ourselves into survival just by thought alone, just by thinking about a stressful situation, that may have happened days before. When the zebra is getting chased by the lion on the Serengeti, its body has moved into survival. All that energy is moved to the extremities to support running, fighting, or hiding. If the zebra then escapes the lion, within 15 minutes, it's back to grazing and the body moves back into homeostasis, balance. And this is a normal survival or stress response. But as a human being, we can create stress, that stress response, just by thinking about a stressful situation. And the body doesn't know the difference between a real threat and the one you've created in your imagination. Just thinking about the problem coworker next to us, our mother-in-law, the argument with our mate or our boss can elicit the same stress response as if we're being chased by a lion. And if we don't stop thinking about those stressful thoughts, we're living in survival, stress. And it's not the time to create, to innovate, to heal, and rejuvenate. And this is the real cause of dis-ease, right? And dis-ease is when the body does not have the time to heal and rejuvenate. So I have a question for all of you. Even though I can't see you, just for fun, how many people here think that their thoughts have something to do with the life you're experiencing? Raise your hand. Hi. Don't your thoughts have everything to do with what you're experiencing? Where are your thoughts occurring? Where's your life actually happening? Well, where do those thoughts occur? Your brain? Where's your brain? It's that 3-pound buttery mass that sits in that dark ivory cavern between your ears. It never sees the light of day. It's where millions, actually trillions of neural connections, which is more stars in the known universe, that are constantly connecting and disconnecting depending on what you're thinking about. So who's in control of what's happening up there? These thoughts. Anyone? Does anyone actually control our thoughts other than ourselves? Well, follow this logic. If we're in control of our thoughts, and our thoughts are the basis of what we experience in life, it would stand to reason that we should be in control of what we're experiencing, right? Well, maybe. Why is it that we don't feel we're in control of our lives sometimes? Well, science tells us that we have up to 60 to 70,000 thoughts every single day. 90% of those thoughts that we're having today are the same thoughts we had the day before. And 95% of those thoughts are unconscious, meaning we're not even aware that we're having them. It's no wonder we have problems with our life. The mind has been likened to an iceberg where 95% of it lies beneath the surface. And science tells us that 95% of our thoughts are unconscious and only 5% are conscious at any given moment. That means 95% of our thoughts are not even available to us. And this can create problems when we're wanting our life to go a specific way and we wonder why it's not. It'd be like driving a car with a blindfold on, where only 5% of your senses are available to you. Pretty scary, right? So who here is familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza? Dr. Joe's a neuroscience researcher. He's the author of several best-selling books. He's an international speaker. He's been invited to speak in 32 countries on 6 continents. And he wrote 4 bestsellers: Evolve Your Brain, You Are the Placebo, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and Becoming Supernatural. Dr. Joe spent the last 25 years studying how the brain works, and he's developed models and teachings to help us understand how we can consciously engage our brains to create desirable and sustainable change in our lives. I've had the privilege of working directly with Dr. Joe as an NCS consultant. And I'm going to share with you a short video with Dr. Joe. It's about 3 minutes, where he discusses the neuroscience of change.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Joe Dispenza here. I wanted to take a moment and give you an overview of the NeuroChange Solution Program. We use science as the contemporary model to demystify the process of personal transformation and sustainable change. There's a neuroscience and a biology of change that we use in this program. We have 2 models and 4 specific tools that teach people how to change, how to overcome the challenges in their life, in the workplace, and really learn how to overcome themselves. We've seen great transformations that have led to better performance, better teamwork, happier employees, healthier employees, and greater leadership. In other words, you'll learn how to think greater than you currently do in your day-to-day work. One of the models has to do with your personality and your personal reality. Your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. And it has a direct effect on every single area of your life. We teach people to understand what it is to truly change and really how to change. We teach people how to use their brains to go from thinking to doing to being, so they can be more productive, they have more innovation, and they can be a better leader. We teach people to understand how to manage their stress, how to manage their emotional reactions, and what we call emotional intelligence. That leads to a healthier employee and a more productive employee. You'll understand the difference between living in survival or living in stress and living in creation or living with a creative mind and working with a creative team. We teach people to understand how to create their different states of being and different emotional states in order to manage better their own emotional reactions and self-regulate. There is a science, in fact, to creativity, to innovation, and to productivity. There's a science of beliefs and perceptions, and teaching people the anatomy of a belief so they can begin to understand that most beliefs are subconscious states of being derived from past experiences. And when they begin to change those beliefs, they begin to see change in every single area of their life. We instruct people about brain waves, and the science of brainwaves so they can go from a state of incoherence that's typically driven by the hormones of stress to greater levels of coherence that lead to more creativity, new ideas, greater effects in every single area of a person's work environment. What are the effects of that? Sustained change leads to greater results in every single area of a company and organization.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. So this is one of the models that Dr. Joe was talking about in the video. You may not know this, but did you know that your personality creates your personal reality? And did you know that your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel? So this present personality who's sitting here today called you, raise your hand. Let's make sure you're present. You've created the present personal reality called your life. Yes or no? It's not your boss. It's not your ex. It's you. This is your state of being. This is who you're being every single day. Yes or no? So does it make sense? If we keep thinking the same thoughts, making the same choices, demonstrating the same behaviors, experiencing the same events, and feeling the same emotions, we're going to stay the same. And so is our life. So if I think differently, make different choices, act differently, create new experiences, and feel differently, I'm going to turn into somebody else. But most people try to create a new personal reality, a new life as that same old personality, and it just doesn't work. You got to become somebody else. And in order for you to change your life, you have to change. How many people understand? So our present personality is the sum total of everything that we've experienced up to this point, because it's affecting how we're thinking, how we're acting, and how we're feeling. You know, think about this. If I think I'm a failure and feel sorry for myself, then I'm going to act a certain way to reflect and support the fact that I'm a failure. You know, I'm going to blame other people. I'm going to make excuses. I'm going to feel sorry for myself. I'm going to talk about other people. You know, I'm going to judge them. And if I'm feeling unworthy or feeling insecure because I'm doing this, then these emotions are going to influence my thoughts again, and I'm going to stay the same. How many people understand? So there's this risk, and the risk is, okay, if I think differently, and then I do start to think differently, and I don't see anything change, well, it's because you've only done it, you know, been thinking that way for 2 minutes. Then you go back to thinking that other way. You know, you got to keep doing it over and over again. And your biology will begin to change as a reflection of what you're thinking, acting, and feeling. Does that make sense? So our personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. That means this present personality who's sitting here today, called you, again, raise your hand, have created the present personality, personal reality called your life. So if you want to change your life, that means you have to change. That means you're going to have to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and changing and becoming conscious, becoming aware of those unconscious habits and behaviors and modify them, you know, and then you got to look at the emotions that are just a reflection of some past experience that you live by every day. And you have to decide, is this emotion going to make it into my future? You know, I can bring it or I can leave it. And again, most people try to create a new personal reality as that same personality, and it just doesn't work. You got to become somebody else. And when you begin to change, your life changes. So again, the old self is a product of all your past experiences, and it's based on your thoughts, actions, and feelings of the past. You know, you wake up in the morning, you start remembering who you are, right? You know, start thinking about what happened the day before, you know, what you're going to do today. You imagine go to the bathroom and bingo, like magic, you're in the bathroom, right? You pick up your phone, you look at your WhatsApp, you check your emails, you check your Telegram, So your state of being is who you're being, who you're showing up as, So to change your personal reality, those things that you experience, you have to do what? You have to change your personality, right? You can't change what you're experiencing without changing yourself. So are we in agreement? Your personality is what creates your life, and your old self is made up of all those old ways of thinking. So to experience a new future or a new personal reality, you have to do what? You just have to change your personality. You have to change how you think, change how you act, change how you feel. So let's look at this in a different way. This is something you're doing right now. Everybody's doing this all the time. And you know how I know this? Because you're thinking. Is everybody thinking today? Good. We're all alive here. But this is how life works in the brain. And we're successfully doing this every waking moment of every day. The thoughts we have that engage us, which are the same thoughts, lead to the same choices, which lead to the same actions and behaviors. And then we have experiences, right? And the end product of every experience is a feeling or an emotion. And those feelings then influence more of the same thoughts. Does that make sense? So again, how do we change our personal reality? Let's review what Dr. Joe said. Our personality is made up of how we think, how we act, how we feel. So to change our personality, we have to change how we think. That's the first step. And then that'll change how we act, how we feel. We have to change our personality, but it all begins with our thoughts. In fact, it begins with one thought. If that thought causes us to make a choice about something and causes us to pursue some action or behavior, then we have an experience. And again, the end product of every experience is an emotion or a feeling. And that then supports more thoughts that generate the same feelings. So new information, is a new thought. This new information can spark new thinking in our mind, and derive a new way of thinking. New neural networks are being formed right now, right? Because you're learning something new. And if you continue to think about it, they're going to become permanent, and habitual. If you read a book on compassion, you're going to start thinking about compassion. You may even start to be more compassionate, and it will become part of who you are. So new thoughts are going to lead to new choices, which are going to create new actions and behaviors, right? Which are going to create new experiences, which are going to give you new things to feel, new emotions, which are going to then reinforce and influence more new thoughts. So if you want to change your personality, you have to do what? Have a new thought. New thoughts lead to new choices, lead to new actions and behaviors, give you new experiences, and the end product of every experience is a feeling, an emotion that then influences more new thoughts. So let's review the left side, right? Thoughts lead to choices, lead to actions, which lead to, experiences. The end product of every experience is a feeling or an emotion. So how do you actually change your personal reality in real life? Well, let's look at how we don't change it. Well, by thinking in the same way that we're used to thinking. If an opportunity for a new job position comes up in your company, then this might be a scenario of thinking in the old way. You have a person in a company who wants to move up and do something that uses their talents more effectively. So they see an ad posted in the company newsletter about this new position. And, but they think about it in that old way of thinking. Okay. They see the ad and they go, not good enough. So the choice they make is, of course, well, they don't apply. They're not going to apply. The action they take is they don't apply. So the experience, of course, they're going to have is I don't get selected, right? Because they didn't apply. So the feeling is I'm unrecognized, I'm unhappy, which then influences more of I'm not good enough. So if we're going to change, we have to what? We have to have a new thought. So here's an example of thinking differently. I'm talented when they see the ad. So they make a choice. I think I'm going to apply. The action they take is they apply. Oh my gosh, the experience they get selected. Now what's their feeling? Wow, I'm acknowledged. I feel happy and fulfilled. That then influences what? More of the thoughts of I'm talented. So remember, we have up to 60 to 70,000 thoughts in a day. And 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts we had the day before. The same thoughts are going to lead to the same choices. Same choice is going to lead to the same behaviors. Same behaviors are going to lead to the same experiences. Same experiences are going to create the same feelings and going to influence more of the same thoughts. And your biology, your neurocircuitry, your neurochemistry, your hormones, even your gene expression is going to stay the same because you are the same. And if all this is the same and you believe your thoughts, your behaviors and emotions have something to do with what you're experiencing, as long as you're thinking, acting, and feeling the same way, don't expect anything to change. So how many people in this audience realize that if you start thinking new thoughts, you're going to have to learn something new, right? Here's an example. If you play off a certain tee on a golf course every weekend, and you think about this big tree on, hole number 3, right in the bend, because it's right in the bend of the fairway. Sooner or later, you're going to hit that tree because that's where your attention is. If you don't want anything to be different in your life, then please don't think any new thoughts. Don't think about things in a different way. Don't expose yourself to new ideas and knowledge. And then you'll only see the same choices that you've already seen. And with those same choices, you're going to find yourself acting and behaving in the same way, which will then result in the same experiences, and the end product of every experience is an emotion. So again, you have to think a new thought, make a new choice. Yes or no? That new choice is going to lead to a new behavior. Yes or no? New behavior creates new experiences. That creates new feelings and emotions. That then reinforces and inspires new thoughts. So every time we have a thought, we make a chemical. We have good thoughts, we make chemicals that make us feel good. If we have negative thoughts, we make chemicals that make us feel exactly the way we're thinking. They can sit us down in a lab and inject these chemicals in our body that make us feel happy, sad, fearful, or any number of emotions just by using the right chemical. And when we're living in stress, we're injecting the chemicals of anger, frustration, sadness, fear, and any number of these negative emotions. It's just not healthy, but when we're living in creation, we're injecting the chemicals of love, kindness, compassion, adventure, and excitement in our lives. Which do you think is healthier and supports your happiness and fulfillment? Creation, not survival. So I'd like to leave you with a new thought. It's not the circumstances of our life that are dictating our experiences. It's the thoughts that we have about those circumstances and the emotional reactions to those circumstances that dictate our life. So thank you. I appreciate your time and your interest in this life-changing work. This is the book where all this information comes from, Breaking the Habit of being yourself. It's, obviously on Amazon or any bookstore. It's also an Audible book, and I highly recommend it because that's where all this information is. But as part of this presentation, and as a thank you for inviting me to be part of your Learning and Professional Development Week for the City of Hope, I'd like to offer you, anyone who's watching this video, a free strategy session to discuss what you feel, is next in your life, your purpose, your job, and your relationships, both personal and business, and how these principles, this knowledge can help you discover those answers. Here's my contact information. So Jamie, do we have any questions?
Yes. Oh, we have plenty. They are coming in. Oh my goodness, John. Amazing. Really amazing. Your teachings really resonated with me. And I just want to share a really quick thing. When you're going through your slide, I recently went through a similar family situation, being a caretaker. And my mindset was that I was too weak to be able to lift and take care of my family member. But I had a mindset change when I saw a clip, someone shared with me some supportive words, and it showed an individual who was very tiny, able to lift a lot of weight. And it completely changed my mindset. And so I recently joined a body fit gym. I met a very supportive community of folks. I started to, lift some dumbbells and some weights, and it completely changed my trajectory. It made me think about where it changed my mindset that I wasn't weak. It wasn't because I was weak. It's that I never thought that I could be strong. So,
Exactly. And you had that new thought, which led to a different choice, right? Which gave you a whole different experience.
It
And
did. So
and look
I
at
love
the
it.
feelings you have about yourself now, totally different, right?
I love it. Yes, I love that in time, I will be able to get to my future state where I can lift, my family and do those things. So really amazing talk. Thank you, John. The questions are coming in now, so I will go ahead with Q&A. John
Okay.
there's a couple of questions here. For those who haven't put in your questions in the chat, please go ahead and do so now. First one I have from Victor. What are some ways to start thinking different thoughts?
Well, again, it's kind of overwhelming to think we have up to 60 to 70,000 thoughts every day, right? Like, how do you manage all that information? Well, that's just what the mind does, right? It's just a thinking machine. But the only thought you have to be concerned about is the one you're having right now, okay? And the best advice I can give you is when you have a thought, step back and think about the thought that you're having. Become conscious of what you're thinking about. And in that moment, is that thought making you happy or is it making you unhappy? And if it's making you unhappy, it's the wrong thought, period. And just change that thought to a happier thought. And you're in control of doing it. And certainly it takes practice. And again, that's what this training is about, is taking you through a formula of how to do that. This training is about reminding you of what you already know about your thinking processes, because you're using this process all the time. But it's about becoming conscious, becoming aware of this.
Thank you, Sean. I can't help but notice in the back you put happiness is a skill. And I really love that. Happiness is a skill, and you've taught us some amazing ways to think differently. So thank you. It says, will the slides be available? A lot of questions from, will the slides be available after the presentation? Everyone really enjoyed this. So
Yeah, the whole recording is going to be available, right? For everybody.
yes. Perfect. From Michelle. How do you subconsciously live each day, balancing both the right and left hemisphere attributes you outlined earlier to help live your best life?
How do you consciously do that?
Yes.
Okay. Again, being aware of what you're thinking. Now, because we think the same thoughts, 90% of the thoughts we think today are the same thoughts we thought the day before, we tend to get into this habitual behavior. Okay. And we go through these routines, we sleep on the same side of bed, we get off on the same side of bed, we get in the shower, we wash the same way, we hold the toothbrush the same way. Just start doing things differently, because every experience you have creates neural networks in your brain. And, we create these, like super highways of neural networks in our brain based on doing things repetitively. And it's hard to break a habit. You know, it takes conscious awareness to think about what we're doing and change. And if we're doing something that really we don't enjoy, but it's habitual, we have to consciously have different thoughts and do things differently to start reprogramming, you know, these neural networks. I mean, we really have the capability of just about anything. I mean, think about it. There's billions of connections that are connecting and disconnecting every second in our brain. That's a lot of possibilities that are going on up there. So the key is to gain an awareness. And how we gain an awareness is just think about what we're thinking about. There's actually a word for it called metacognition.
Metacognition. Thank you, John. Very interesting. Michelle K, she asked, what was your first big change in thinking and what changed for you?
Oh my gosh. It actually happened in a divorce. When I went through a divorce, you know, I was a victim. I was totally, you know, in blame and judgment, and those were not happy thoughts. And it just created more of that same experience. And that's actually the time when I got introduced to this work with Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I realized that, wait a minute, I'm in control of my experience here, because my experience is happening up here. And it's based on the thoughts I'm having about these circumstances. So I just started changing how I was thinking about it. You know, it's like, hey, divorces happen. But, you know, I changed from being the victim, which basically was giving away my power to change anything, right? If somebody else is, you know, the cause of my unhappiness, I'm basically giving away my power to do anything about it. So I took back my power and I said, you know what? I'm going to make this as pleasant a situation as I can. And I'm going to do that through kindness, compassion, and respect for everyone involved. And just by changing those thoughts, it changes the whole outcome of that experience.
Thank you, John. We have from Natalia. How do you stick with, excuse me, how do you stick with positive thoughts? How do you keep yourself in check when so much personal and professional change is happening?
That time, those reactions that we have, those negative thoughts, you know, creates the chemicals, right? You know, like somebody comes up in a bad mood, like a boss, and just lays right into us, okay? And our tendency is to react and get defensive and move into that stress response. But instead of doing that, be aware of that. Again, that's metacognition, and being aware of, you know, oh, I'm getting angry, right? I feel like I'm being attacked. I feel like I need to be defensive. Take a deep breath. You know, that's a normal response. And that's actually a chemical in your body. But if you can just take a deep breath, not react, and let those chemicals dissipate, you'll move back into a more balanced state. And then you can realize, like, oh my God, this person's in stress. They're having a difficult time today. How can I support them in being less stressed? Well, certainly by me getting angry is not going to help that. So I can be calmer. I can be more loving and be compassionate in supporting them in solving whatever they need to solve. Because I guarantee they're not angry with you. They're angry with the situation or with themselves for, you know, what they've created probably. So it creates a whole new dynamic. And those reactions become like these little jewels that help us uncover unconscious thinking, you know, when we become aware of it. So again, it's all about awareness. And, you know, because if we react and, you know, say something in anger or say something in reaction, we always regret it. We always regret it. And we wish we hadn't said that. We wish we hadn't sent that email.
I think a lot of us might have had that experience, John. So that definitely is what everyone can relate with. I think we have time for one more question. So I apologize I didn't get to everyone's question, but I thank you all for sending your questions. Our last one is about many of us usually are in routine, like rut behavior. What is one most useful way to start that change in behavior?
Recognize the behavior and think about what you can do differently, and then keep repeating that different behavior. And what happens is in your brain, you've got this thing called glia that holds all these neural connections together with this habitual type of thinking. And you get these new thinking, it's like learning to play the violin, right? First, put the violin up next to your neck. It's the most awkward thing you've ever done. How you hold your fingers on the bow, it's the most uncomfortable thing you've ever done. But after you spend a lot of time practicing and learning the music and moving the bow, and over time, it gets habitual, right? And after a year or 2 years of practice, you don't even think about holding the violin. You're just listening to the music. And what happens when you do that, you've created a whole neural network. And then you've actually replaced the belief system you had that you couldn't play a musical instrument. And it takes the glia, the glue from those old connections to create the new connections. And it's like in a couple of years, you can't even remember that you couldn't believe that you were not a good musician or not musically inclined. So again, it takes awareness, conscious effort. And again, if anybody has some questions, again, there's my information. Send me an email. We'll set up a strategy session and you can ask those questions then. I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you so much, John. What an amazing and informative session.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a wonderful week.
Thank you, John. I was going to say in closing, I wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. It was really, really empowering. Thank you so much. As a reminder, please be sure to participate in our attendee games to win prizes, especially our City of Hope Olympics that are happening on site on Tuesday, and our virtual games that are happening on Wednesday. And take the time to review and join this week's remaining sessions. Meet with exhibitors and engage with fellow participants. Thank you, everyone.